Hey everyone, Ryan from the Rad Owners Forum, and today we are talking about the RadRover Step-Thru one. This is the model that Rad Power Bikes released this year, so I'm excited to dig into their latest iteration of the fat tire electric bike. Okay, as you can see, I also have my 2018 Rad Wagon, just kind of using that for scale, just so you can kind of get a sense of the size of both of these bikes. I've been riding the 2020 Rover the past couple of weeks. As you can see, this is the Step-Thru model. I wanted to keep this review a little bit different. You can look at Rad Power Bike's website, view all the statistics. There's also a handful of other review videos, but I kind of wanted to talk about some of the specifics from my experience riding this bike over the past couple of weeks, and kind of dig into some of the details, having owned the Rad Wagon, kind of compare and contrast a little bit, and talk about some things that might not otherwise appear in some of the videos, or those videos where perhaps they are only test riding the bike for, let's say, an hour or something. So when the bike first arrived and I took it out of the box, I don't think I truly understood just kind of how beefy the bike is with these giant fat tires. I've seen fat tire bikes before, but for some reason it just kind of surprised me when I got it. And I believe these are 4 inches wide. So if you haven't seen a fat tire bike before, just know that this is a kind of a beefy bike, definitely made for, trails and things like that. One of the main things that we've really noticed riding this is it is just so stable with the fat tires. You can run them on super low pressure, just depending on the terrain, which means they're super forgivable. You can ride them, very slow, and it's totally comfortable. Just keep in mind you're going to have a little bit more rolling resistance than, for instance, on my wagon with those thinner tires. So I think that's probably one of the main considerations if you're looking for maybe perhaps more efficiency, or you're going to be riding in the city. You really might want to consider the Rad City or Rad City Step-Thru. If you're looking for something that's going to be a little bit more capable, I would definitely consider the RadRover. Now, this is the new model for this year, so they have that Step-Thru model, and as you can see, we have this thing fully decked out with a bunch of the accessories. In my last video, I talked about, kind of went through my thoughts on all these different accessories. Some of my thoughts, I think if you kind of have to only pick one of these accessories, I really like this rear rack. One of the main reasons is because of the rear light. So when you get this rack, they give you everything, an extension cable, and I just quickly ran it here, but it allows the light, instead of being here, and there's a little plate that comes up, but really, the fenders really block that. So if you aren't going to get the rear rack, I would highly recommend some other solution. I don't know, maybe putting some lights on the seat post, but it's really, when the light is here, it is really hidden. So that's one reason I really like the rear rack. Also, obviously, you can put pannier bags down the side. You can put a bag on the top. It does have that window for the Thule maxi seat that we have there in the background. So definitely consider the rear rack. And I talked about this, so I don't want to repeat myself, but these are very beefy accessories that Rad Power Bikes makes. They're a little on the expensive side, but I do think the quality is there. Okay, so let's just kind of walk through some of the other things. I think one of the main changes recently has been this new light, and it's daylight right now, so it's a little bit hard to see. But they kind of have this light where it protrudes, so you can get a little bit more side visibility there, and at night you can see it. Just for reference, here's the old light on my Rad Wagon, which I believe is turned off. Actually, no, it is on. So it's actually kind of hard to tell that it's on compared to this one. So I like the addition, the improvement of the light, always a good thing. The other thing that I will say about the RadRover, and this would also be for the minis, when I was putting this together, all I had to do adjustments wise for the brake, you can see that little adjustment, takes an Allen wrench right there, and I was able to just adjust that right from there, and it was super easy. On the RadWagon, you actually have to take the brake off to get in there and then loosen it. So being able to do that on the spot is super handy. So love that about the different motor. Obviously it's still a 750 watt motor, slightly louder, more torque than the RadWagon and Rad City, those direct drive models. I want to talk a little bit about the shipping. So Rad Power Bikes has these really cool boxes. They're running this like coloring contest, which I think is pretty fun. But compared to when I got my RadWagon, not that my RadWagon came completely fine, no issues. But I will say it seems like they've made some improvements to the box and just some of the packaging things. So I was really impressed when I got the Rover. And then as we're digging in a little bit to this is obviously the black model. I like some of the additional touches. You can kind of see they have this like gunmetal gray feature here. It looks really nice. They're starting to label their bikes. You can see it says RadRover ST for Step-Thru #1. That's pretty neat. And the other thing that I will say that I like about the bike, I'm not sure if it's my mount for the RadWagon, if I just need to add some kind of lubricant, but the way this is positioned upright, it is so much easier to remove this battery than to remove my wagon battery. So I think that is quite handy. I mean, I don't think it's a deciding factor, but just something that's really nice. It's kind of harder to get in here with my wagon. The other thing I will say, let's talk a little bit about the step-through aspect. Let's see if I can kind of compare it to the RadWagon. I'm on a slight hill, but the step-through is definitely accessible. But I actually have a tape measure here, so I'm kind of curious to see where this actually, it's not a specific measurement, but you can see that it's about 20 inches. That's where that one bar is. And realistically, you're probably not going to get your foot right there. So just something to keep in mind. The step-through is obviously a lot more accessible, than the regular. And if we measure my wagon from the ground approximately 24 inches, it looks like the lower part of that bar. So something to keep in mind. And one of the things that I really love about Rad Power Bikes, and I think this step-through is a perfect example, is they're trying to make these electric bikes accessible to everyone. So coming out with a step-through fat tire bike is pretty neat. I don't think a lot of folks are thinking about some of these things. So just the amount of different options you can buy an electric bike depending on your needs. One of the models of Rad Power Bikes is going to be good. And the other really cool thing that I like about the step-through is you have this bottle cage mount right here. That's so handy. You can see on my wagon there's no mounts. The only mounts that you have are underneath here, and that's just not conducive to having a water bottle. So I have one of those front mounts. So again, something that you might want to consider if you're considering the Rover versus the Rover Step-Thru. The other thing that I wanted to mention, one of the big improvements for 2020 were that Rad Power Bikes started including fenders for all their models. They used to be an optional accessory, and I think they had some issues with keeping them in stock, which probably caused some frustrations for folks. And really, on a bike like this, they're really quite nice to have. So it also, it saves the consumer a little bit of money. Don't have to buy it separately. So I thought that was a great addition for 2020. They're just plastic, but they're harder plastic, and I installed them very easily. And there's no issues, no rubbing, plenty of clearance, and things like that. And then one of the other main differences is obviously this is just a single speed chainring up front. It has the guards, which is really nice compared to my RadWagon. Again, this is different than the current RadWagon, but there's 3 gears here. It's not quite as protected, perhaps. Then obviously with the RadRover, you get the addition of the shocks, which come in handy. I was able to kind of go over curbs, and with the combination of the fat tires and those shocks, that was actually quite nice. I would say, if I'm running an errand, and I'm going to be on some sidewalks, or I don't know what the terrain is going to be, I'm probably going to take the Rover. And one of the main reasons is because of those fat tires, because it is so forgiving. It's just a more comfortable ride. We love, I don't want to discount the wagon because we love it. We have, 3,200 or so miles on that. We often ride with 2 passengers. We're excited to get our child on the child seat this summer. But it is nice to have that front suspension in combination with those fat tires. Putting together the bike, I did not have to make, I talked a little bit about the brake adjustment. Beyond that, the bike was fine. I thought it was kind of interesting. Rad Power Bikes put in, they're actually kind of come attached to the spokes, just telling you about some of the spoke tension. That was a thing that we had to adjust on our RadWagon when we got it. We just had to tighten them. And you should, if you're not comfortable doing some of these things, you should definitely have a professional bike shop put it together. But I thought it was interesting that Rad Power Bikes is now calling out that you should make sure that the tension on the spokes is correct. Usually what happens is you hear like some kind of clicking, and that's how we knew that we needed to adjust the wagon, but that hasn't been an issue. So one of the things that I forgot to mention with that rear light, so when the front light is off, the default is that this is off. However, it's going to be probably tricky to see, but when I hit the brake, the light goes on. Now, if I turn on the front light, the rear light is still on, and it probably is showing a little bit weird on the camera, but then when you hit the brake, it goes brighter, so folks kind of know when you're slowing down. So that's a handy feature with the RadWagon. The old model RadWagon didn't have that integrated rear light, so it's either on or flashing. So that's kind of a plus. And then I think the only other thing that I'll mention is the kickstand. It's actually quite nice. Holds the bike, obviously very, very different from the RadWagon. So definitely a good feature as well. So overall, I was thoroughly impressed with the RadRover Step-Thru. When I think about Rad Power Bikes, the one word that keeps coming to mind is accessibility. And kind of as I talked a little bit about earlier, like the fact that they are offering a step-through of a fat tire bike just kind of furthers, them making e-bikes that anyone can ride. I was a little bit concerned that this bike might be a little bit too big for my wife to ride, but given the step-through, The fat tires, I think, add quite a lot of stability. But I think there's also things that you should think about when you're considering which model. Some folks might be intimidated by some of the large tires, and perhaps the Rad Mini is a better option, or even the City, or even the Wagon, like our other bike. So those are some of the things that I think folks should think about. But I have to say, for a fat tire bike, I'd never been on one before. It was a ton of fun to ride this bike around. I got tons of comments, people talking about how they've never seen a bike like this before. And I think a lot of people are drawn to the fact that it's a step-through. And I think there's, it's not just the advantage of that it's the lower step, kind of like I talked about how the water bottle is there. The accessibility of taking the battery in and out, and some of those things really make me think that more people will probably opt for the step-through model. Hey everyone, hope you enjoyed that video. If you want to support what I'm doing with Rad Owners Forum, here's 3 easy ways. Number 1, use the link in the description when you're buying a Rad power bike. You will earn a $50 Amazon gift card. Number 2, you can view my accessories page, which has a list of recommended accessories for Rad power bikes. If you make a purchase, I will earn a small commission. Number 3, subscribe to my YouTube channel or join the forum at radowners.com.